I remember the way the air in the lounge seemed to hum, not from the fusion core downstairs, but from the sudden, sharp proximity of them. Julian's hand didn't shake as he reached out. I saw it myself, standing just far enough back to be a ghost in the corner. He didn't care about the jagged ridges of her Xylari armor or the fact that she could snap his radius with a casual twitch of her wrist. He just pressed that warm ceramic mug into her palm. His skin was so pale against her dark metallic scales. A soft, pulsing heat meeting something built for the vacuum of space. She looked at him with a gaze that held no tally, no calculation of rank or threat. For a second, the whole spire just stopped. It was like they were the only two pulses in the whole sector. Truth is, I don't think they even noticed me standing there. But it wasn't always that quiet. Before that moment, Vera was a sovereign heart in a ceremonial cage. I watched her for weeks during the summit, moving through the grand assembly like a predator being told where to sit. She was commander of the hegemony, military stock, a prize for the taking. High Warlord Drax was always there, hovering, his presence like a suffocating weight. He talked about genetic alliances and optimization as if Vara were a ship to be dry docked. I could see the tightness in her jaw, the way she gripped her command staff until the knuckles of her gauntlets turned white. Then there was Julian, a human liaison who didn't seem to know he was supposed to be afraid. I was on the observation deck when they first crossed paths. The nebula outside was a riot of violet and gold, waging war against hostile geometry in the deep black. Most people were looking at the stars, but Julian was looking at her. He didn't bow. He just smiled. It wasn't a smirk or a political play. It was just a smile. The politics of the bitter seed started small. Julian found her later in a corner of the lounge where the light from the Nexus core was soft and amber. He offered her that bitter Terran infusion. Coffee, he called it. The steam rose between them, smelling of roasted earth and something honestly, beautifully mundane. I saw her hesitate. Silari don't take gifts from lesser species, but she took it. The heat of the mug seeped through her gloves, and for the first time, I saw her shoulders drop an inch. They ended up in the gaming arcade later. I followed them, mostly because I couldn't believe what I was seeing. But when they were playing a Thraxian combat simulator, this chaotic mess of lights and sound, they were terrible at it, truly. I laughed to myself watching Vera try to calibrate her tactical mind to a game designed by four-armed lunatics. Julian was laughing too, actually laughing, while Drax watched from the entryway with a face like a collapsing star. It was the first spark of something dangerous, something real. And then the warlord stepped forward, his hand on his blade, and the air went cold. I saw the way the Grand Assembly looked that day. It was a massive circular pit of cold obsidian and flickering blue light. I was standing near the back, tucked away where the light didn't quite reach, watching the High Warlord Drax pace like a caged animal. And he was all gold plating and sharp edges, his voice echoing off the vaulted ceiling as he spoke about genetic purity and the claim he had on Vara. He talked about her as if she were a long-range tactical weapon, a piece of military stock that belonged to the hegemony. Look, it was hard to listen to. He made it sound like her life was just a series of numbers and battle records. Julian stood across from him. He looked so out of place in his simple human fabrics, his hair a mess from lack of sleep. But he didn't flinch. When it was his turn to speak, he didn't bring up laws or military codes. I remember the way his voice sounded. It was quiet, but it filled the room. He talked about how Vara liked the way the salt on the cafeteria crackers reminded her of the sea on a moon she'd visited once. He talked about how she cheated at that Thraxian game because she couldn't stand losing to a primitive human. He argued that Vera wasn't a prize or a ship. She was just a person who enjoyed bad games and even worse sandwiches. The air in the room felt tight, like the moment before a ship jumps to warp. I saw Vera then. She was standing between them, her dark scales shimmering under the harsh spotlights. She looked at Julian, and for a second, I thought I saw her lower lip tremble, just the tiniest bit. It wasn't fear. It was something else. Radical equality, I guess you could call it. She was being seen, truly seen, for the first time in her life. Then she did it. She stepped forward and didn't look at the warlord once. She spoke to the whole assembly, her voice steady and clear. She stripped Drax of his claim right there in front of the galaxy. She didn't use a blade or a challenge. She just chose Julian. She chose the man who saw her heart instead of her rank. I saw Drax's face go pale. It was a defeat of political shame that hurt more than any death match. He had no choice but to retreat. I watched him walk out, his heavy boots thudding against the floor, leaving a space that felt lighter the moment he was gone. Afterward, the spire felt different. I saw the Zalari delegation watching her as she walked away with Julian. There was a newfound respect there, a quiet acknowledgement of her autonomy. I followed them down to the lower decks near the gaming lounge. The smell of ozone and the low hum of the station's life support systems were everywhere. Julian reached out and touched her arm, the heat of his hand meeting the cool vibration of her armor. I saw the way she leaned into it. Truth is, they were already miles away from the politics and the wars. They were just two people heading back to the simulator to fail that final level one more time. I didn't follow them inside. I think they had enough witnesses for one lifetime.